Welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name's Mary English. You can find me at www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk and UK Astrologer. Hello. Now, I spent a fab Wednesday this week going to the location of the International Astrology Library, and it'll be the International Astrology Library online when Philip finishes scanning some extra books. But I'd gone to his home where he stores all the books for the library. So the library is basically most of the ground floor of his house and one room upstairs, which is the Astrological Association's library. And trust me, there are a lot of books there. So we're talking thousands of books, so hundreds of physical books and thousands of manuscripts and journals, etc. And dating back quite early, I think the earliest one he had was 1500 and something, which is pretty early for somebody to own personally. So I have had Philip on the podcast before, but I will be inviting him back in a few weeks, months' time to talk more about the International Astrology Library online, because it's a big thing, and I'm part of a little subcommittee from the Astrological Association that's working on it. So there's a little bit of what's been going on. Anyway, one of the things, so I'm reading a book at the moment, I'm reading it for the second time, and it's called Astrology from Ancient Babylon to the Present by a guy called P.G. Maxwell Stewart, who isn't an astrologer, but he specialises in books on witchcraft. That's sort of rather his thing, and obviously he went off a little bit at a tangent here and did this book all about astrology and the history of astrology. So not how astrology is practiced or how to make a chart, but the history of it. And it's terribly interesting. But I'm reading it for the second time because I've got a small brain and sometimes things don't always click in place first time I read them. And anyway, I was sort of thinking, because a lot of the books that are ancient astrology books, I'm just talking now about the history of astrology, very early astrologers were predominantly blokes, and it was predominantly blokes that wrote books and practiced astrology, because women weren't allowed to study or do anything. So I was having a little search on Astro Databank today to see if I could find just one chart or one entry for a woman that might have been an astrologer of any description. And trust me, it's not an easy thing. So I have got a chart today, and this is a woman, and she was born a while ago, and she was born in the year 1559. So that's using the Julian calendar, because the Gregorian calendar didn't start 1880 something, and she's born before then. So Wikipedia, on our Wikipedia page, is two different dates of birth, but Astro Databank has her listed as 24th of August 1559 using the Julian calendar. Because one of the difficulties of going back in time and doing astrology and stuff, you can do it easily now because computer programs will do it for you, but there is this period in the 1500s where some bloke, and I've talked about him before, the Gregorian chap, whoever he was, can't remember, he might have been a pope or something, decided that he didn't like the way that the calendar was done and changed it. So that meant then that if we're talking about dates, they don't correspond to other dates, and then your brain cells fry. Anyway, I wanted to demonstrate this chart because us women, right, and I'm speaking from a purely feminine point here now, I expect that there are more female astrologers out in the world, if we were to count them, than there might be male astrologers. Now, there's plenty of bloke astrologers who have written books and do webinars and run schools and all the rest of it, but I think actually on the front line, I expect there's more women doing it. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am, because when I go to conferences and I go to lecture things, it's the ratio of women there is more than men, and I wonder why that is. I don't know, I'm not bothered about what the reason is. But back in the day, women were just as interested in astrology, divination, the future, as they might be today. But they were genuinely discouraged. And I will read you a little snippet in a minute of what somebody said about this particular lady. And when I read that, I felt like punching the microphone. It's like, oh, just because you're a woman. What a load of doodah. So we have the chart of Sophia Brahe. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it. And she is more well known by her maiden name, was a Danish noblewoman and horticulturist. Now, this is why Wikipedia, when I smash them as well, with knowledge of astronomy, chemistry and medicine. It wasn't astronomy that she was interested in, it actually was astrology. And in this book by P.G. Maxwell Stewart, The History of Astrology, because I'm reading the history of astrology at the moment, he calls it Astrology-Astronomy. But back in the day, everything was called Astrology, spelled G-I-E, Astrology, G-O-I-E on the end of it, different sort of spellings and stuff. And it was only much, much later that astronomy broke away from astrology. Okay, you with me? Yeah. And so there's just that first sentence there. Whilst on Astro Databank, she is listed as Danish astrologer, the sister of Tycho Brahe. He praised her in a preserved manuscript and wrote that if she had been a man, she would have been given great recognition in the learned society for her astrological, so that's not astronomical, her astrological abilities, and she died in 1643. So that's their little blurb. That's Astro Databank. And then you go to Wikipedia. Who hates Wikipedia? The editors that are on there, the people that owns the flapping site. It's all, don't get me started. Anyway, so she was born in Knupsford Castle in Denmark and was the youngest of 10 children. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, you can whiz over to her Wikipedia page and read the whole thing. I'm not going to read it all out for you. Go read it yourself. And I've got some dates for her. So she was married to a guy called Otto Thott in 1579 when she was 33. So when he was 33 and she was at least 20, though possibly older. Why has somebody put possibly older? If we know what the year was, we knew what year she was born, what are you talking about? Anyway, they had one child before he died on the 23rd of March 1588. They had a son and he was born in 1580. And I'm thinking, now this is somebody that's a sun sign Virgo. I'll go through her chart in just a minute. You're trying to tell me that she didn't write down somewhere the dates that she did stuff, and you're trying to tell me that Wikipedia, which is supposedly an online, hasn't got that data? No. We're not talking about the person that's in the chart here. She was obviously born to a slightly rich family because she wouldn't have been able to indulge herself in the things that she did indulge herself in if there hadn't been a couple of bob about. But let me just walk you through her chart. So we have got the time of day as well, because somebody in the family recorded it and maybe wrote it down. So 24th of August 1559, and the time is 5:11 a.m. and the place is called Knudstorp in Denmark. So she's a sun sign Virgo, which is about 9 degrees 41, and the ascendant is 9 degrees. So she was born just as the sun was rising, and Mercury is 17. So she's got sun and Mercury on the ascendant in Virgo. Okay, so what's Virgo all about? Precision. And she had moon in Taurus, and the moon is 17 degrees, and it's conjunct Neptune. I think Neptune's retrograde. Yes, so Neptune's retrograde in Taurus. Got its Jupiter in Pisces, which is in opposition to her sun sign. So the sun's 9 degrees in the first house, along with Mercury, and then the 7th house is Jupiter conjunct Pluto in the sign of Pisces. So this is a long time ago, 1559, right? This was not yesterday. This is centuries ago. And the moon and Neptune conjunct, I mean, if you've got moon and Neptune conjunct in Taurus, you're going to be very imaginative, but in a practical way. Yeah. And she had her MC in Gemini, and she had Saturn in Gemini. She's got Venus in Libra in the second, and then Uranus and Chiron in the third in the sign of Pisces, and Mars in Saggy in the fourth. Now, because her Jupiter is retrograde in her seventh, she did marry. Her first marriage was, it was classified successfully. I mean, he wasn't poverty-stricken, this chap, but he did unfortunately die. And the Jupiter and Pluto, the Pluto is in the 6th house, because her ascendant is 39 degrees 37 minutes, and her Pluto is 34. Yes, so Pluto's definitely in the 6th. But Jupiter is 13 degrees and 30 minutes retrograde in Pisces. It's definitely in the 7th. It's retrograde and it's in the sign of Pisces. So I thought, well, if we've got a chart and we've got the date the husband dies, surely we'll be able to see the transits for that, which we do. And this is, when we look at the transit chart, it's significant. If we're talking about somebody is dying, then, you know, generally speaking, somebody that you're close to, if they pass to the other side, you're going to see something going on in your chart. I'm working with a student at the moment. She's just got on to transit, so I'll show her this chart when I speak to her next. So this is the date that hubby dies. So hubby dies 23rd of March 1588, and that's the Gregorian date, because soon after she was born, Julian date, we're now going to Gregorian date. And I think the date that Wikipedia gives us will be, yes, that gives us a Gregorian date. What a time to be born, just when somebody decides to flipping well change a calendar. Anyway, so the transits for that date, she's natally got moon 17 degrees Taurus. Saturn comes along, boom, and that's 13 degrees Taurus. So soon after he dies, Saturn's going to be exactly conjunct to her moon in the 9th house. And then in her 7th house, she's got a transit of Uranus. So Uranus is now 14 degrees into Pisces, and her natal Jupiter is 13. So Uranus, sudden, boomf. And then there's the moon is in Aquarius in the 6th house. So because he's died and they've got a son, upon her husband's death, Sophia managed his property in Eriksholm, today it's called Trollholm Castle, running the estate to keep it profitable until her son came of age. During this time, she also became a horticulturist in addition to her studies in chemistry and medicine. The gardens she created in Eriksholm were said to be exceptional. Sophia was particularly interested in studying chemistry and medicine, according to Paracelsus. Don't pronounce that, she's famous, in which small doses of poison might serve as strong medicines, and used her skills to treat the local poor. Well, she's a Virgo. Virgos are really into health and healing, aren't they? Sophie enjoyed the partial freedom she was allowed in the medical field. However, women were often not entitled to receive a college degree, the lack of which prevented her from practicing medicine as a legitimate physician. Similarly, she was devoted to the study of astrology and helped her brother with producing horoscopes. Now, he was famous, and what I say he was called, so the brother is, he was an astronomer, but I'm sure he just mentioned there he does horoscopes. Tycho Brahe, not doing his chart because we're doing women today. Now, eventually, she got friendly with some bloke called Eric Lang, and he was a nobleman, but he didn't have any money. Typical story, isn't it? He's a nobleman, but he hasn't got a penny to his name. His pursuit of alchemy left him financially unstable. He was especially fixated on producing gold, which led to his monetary problems. Oh, I wonder why. Anyway, they got married. And didn't get married until 1602. And it says Sophia was often ridiculed and avoided due to her personal life and marriage. Many alienated her due to her marriage to Eric Lang, which was opposed by all in her family except for her brother Tycho. Now, this is the bit I'm going to read you where I wanted to punch the microphone. Tycho, this is the brother now, wrote that he had trained Sophia in horticulture and chemistry, but initially discouraged her from studying astronomy. They say in astronomy, it could be astrology, right? Undeterred, Sophia learned astronomy on her own, studying books in German and having Latin books translated with her own money so that she could read them as well. Much of Tycho's apprehension about Sophia's learning actually did not come from concerns about her ability to perform astronomical observations. Rather, he worried that she would not be able to achieve the level of understanding necessary to work in the field of astrology, which was inexorably linked to astronomy. As astronomers, the Brahes would have been expected to provide horoscopes. No, an astronomer doesn't provide horoscopes. I'm going to go and edit that. It's astrologers that provide horoscopes, which would have been taken very seriously by their customers. Later in both of their careers, Tycho once again discouraged her from continuing her research into astronomy, which he believed was too complex for the talents of a woman. That's the one that I was losing the plot about. Oh, you're not bright enough to study this. Goodness me, can't believe that there'd actually be there is a record of him having said that. Grr. I'm definitely going to go in and edit that later on. Astronomers didn't do bloody horoscopes. Astrologers did. But as I say, Maxwell Stewart says in the book, he calls them astrologer-astronomers, or sometimes he calls them astronomer-astrologers. I mean, it's like, why is everybody getting... What's wrong with using the word astrologer? They were astrologers, and they had to know astronomy as well, but they were called astrologers, especially when they were drawing up horoscopes, because you can't draw up a horoscope and not be an astrologer, because a horoscope is an astrological thing. Now, there's a bit further on here. After her series of contributions in the 1570s, Sophia achieved more autonomy with regards to her astronomical research than before. Despite the serious doubts Tycho had previously expressed about Sophia's ability to comprehend the nuances of horoscopes, when he was frequently away from Orenburg between 1588 and 1597, Sophia took on much of Tycho's astrological responsibilities with their clients. So she was like the backup to his flipping practice, and then he's telling her that she wouldn't be any good at it. Do you know, if that was my brother, I really would have a word with him. So then there was a poem that was written about her, and people were saying that it could have been written by her, but everybody says it wasn't written by her, but it was about her and someone else. She did lots of work on genealogy, and she completed her first work in 1600. And so in 1626, Sophia completed a 900-page manuscript on the genealogies of 60 Danish noble families, which is held by the Lund University. So you have to sort of imagine that there was no shortage of witches back in the day, and there probably were women that were interested in astrology as well. But you'd have to be educated. I mentioned this before when we had Chris Mitchell on the show, and he was talking about his book. You had to go to university to learn these things, or be able to afford books, or even, come to think of it, you've got to have the time and not have loads of babies running around, so, under your feet, because you don't get the time to study things. But this lady did. I say, well done to her, Sophia Brahe. Let's give the woman a nice big cheer for being able to understand horoscopes and practice them, and teach herself as well. She paid for the books to be translated so that she could understand them, and she drew up horoscopes. Now, trust me, I draw up horoscopes using computer programs. Never could have done it if I had to do it by hand, but she did it by hand and using tables of houses, etc., to be able to draw horoscopes up and stuff. So for someone to say you can't do it because you're a woman, so I'll calm down in a minute. But I feel quite sorry for people today that are doing research in astrology, because just Googling things, the astrology thing gets knocked off and it's just astronomy. I mean, that's presuming whether or not you use Wikipedia as a first line resource before you go on to somewhere else. But I wonder what this awful allergy is about not being able to use the word astrology, because that was what she did. She did horoscopes. Cool. And they were complicated to do, and she managed to do it. So well done her. So if you're considering learning astrology, trust me, it's much easier today because we've got computer programs. We don't have to do all the mathematical calculations. And then once you've learned how to do it, I'm saying it's easy because I've been doing it for 30 years, but somebody of like limited educational level. I only ever got as far as O level. I didn't go anything higher than that. I tried to do an A level and I flunked. But I've managed to be able to calculate a chart using a computer program, because even though a computer program will do a certain amount for you, you still need to know when a chart looks correct, etc. And personally, I think astrology is the answer to life, universe and everything, but there we go. So now then, if we go further in time, we've only got the year that she dies. So they don't know if she died before or after her birthday. So this is the death of the husband. This is her death herself. I mean, she was in her 80s at this point, so she had a fair innings. And what I thought was interesting was transiting Pluto is now 5 degrees Gemini, and her natal Saturn is 6 degrees Gemini. So transiting Pluto, which is a very slow planet, by the way, is very near to her natal Saturn, and her Saturn's up in her 9th house, and it's not far off her MC. Because I can't use any other planets other than the outer planets, because we don't know what month it was she died. So I thought, well, all I can look at, so I've done a chart for the 13th of August 1643, because that's the year that they say that she died. But I swear, because she was a double Virgo, somebody must have recorded it somewhere, and I'm surprised it's not on her headstone. I did try and find a headstone, but all we've got is the year that she died, so that's 1643. So I thought, well, all I can take into account is possibly transiting Saturn. That'd still be in the sign that it was in when she died, which was Aries, and Jupiter possibly, but for sure Pluto is in Gemini. She's got natal Saturn in Gemini. Transiting Uranus is in Scorpio, and I've done half it. I've done August. So transiting Uranus is 12 degrees, and she's got her natal Uranus 12 degrees. So some people do live to their Uranus return, which she did. And transiting Neptune is now 29 degrees Scorpio, and her natal Chiron is 25. So it's not far off. So I thought, well, she's, inverted commas, sort of died under outer planets. Is that a way to describe it? Pluto, transiting Pluto near to Saturn, Uranus return, Pluto not far off natal Chiron. So you've done a good innings there. She's had a fair life and done lots of things and did some astrology. She also discovered, or helped to discover, a new star, because her brother did all the work, and I think she helped him as well. Discovered a new star. I think it was a star, but she helped with the discovery of it. I think it's just got a number now. How awful to discover something in the sky and not have a name for it and just get a number. But anyway, she was involved in that because she supported him. So she was pretty much a talented lady. I will be back next week. We have a special guest, and her name is Leanne McCafferty, and she is an astrologer, so I'll be speaking to her next week. I'm going to bore you rigid about the library, but only because there's nothing boring about it at all. It's super exciting. This will be one of the only astrological libraries that is owned by, not by a person, so the majority of it is owned by Philip Graves, but it's under the banner of the Astrological Association, so a library of nothing but astrology books. And he didn't just have books in English, he had them in French, Italian, Spanish, and various different, he had Indian astrology books as well. So you can find out a lot of what he has. He's got it all catalogued, and it's on his own website, which is astrolearn.com. So you can find more about Philip Graves on there, but I'll give you some more information about the online library soon. So it's just a short episode this week because I got so worked up about not being able to find too many ancient female astrologers. The only other ancient one I know off the top of my head was Hildegard of Bingham, and that was because she practiced medical astrology. I can't remember if I've done her chart, but if I haven't, I don't even know if we got her date of birth. But anyway, the amount of female astrologers are few and far between. So I thought we'd just dedicate a small amount of this podcast. I don't know an awful lot about this particular lady, Sophia. There isn't heaps written about her because unfortunately her brother was far more famous than her. And you know, that's the other thing that cheesed me off. God, I'm having a moan today, aren't I? William Herschel, who discovered Uranus, used to live with his sister, and she used telescopes and stuff. Now, she definitely wasn't an astrologer. She definitely was an astronomer because they were staring through telescopes at the time. But she assisted him, and she's very rarely mentioned. And her name's Caroline, because I remember when I was writing my Pisces book, I think it was the Pisces book, one of the books anyway, I was writing about Uranus, and I was going on about William Herschel, and the editor said, and yes, the sister. Oh, and I didn't know anything about the sister because there wasn't a lot of info at that time when I wrote the first series of books. So that's why I eventually went down to the museum and found out more about the sister, so Caroline. So yeah, women back in the day. Is it any different these days? I don't know. But anyway, if you've got any astrological questions, ping them over to me, mary@maryenglish.co.uk. If you want to have a discount, please pop over to the website. The discount's still up and running. A pop-up-y thing will come on the website and get 20% off. So use it or lose it. And I hope you have a fab week, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye now.